The cowboy offered love, not just shelter. At 18, she became a mail-order bride. The stagecoach lurched to a stop, throwing Emma Carter against the wooden seat. Dust choked her lungs as she peered through the cracked window at the desolate town of Redemption Springs. This was it, her new life. Her only escape from the orphanage that had cast her out the moment she turned 18. Her fingers trembled as she clutched the worn photograph of Jake Morrison, the rancher who had agreed to marry her sight unseen. His letter had been simple, honest. He needed a wife. She needed a home. That was supposed to be the arrangement. The driver yanked open the door. "End of the line, miss." Emma stepped down onto the dusty street, her single carpet bag heavy in her hand. The town was smaller than she had imagined. A handful of weathered buildings lined the main road, and beyond them stretched endless prairie beneath a merciless sun. "You the bride?" She turned to find a tall man standing 10 feet away. He removed his hat, revealing sun-weathered features and eyes the color of storm clouds. Jake Morrison. He was older than his photograph suggested, maybe 30, with calloused hands and a quiet intensity that made her pulse quicken. "Emma Carter?" she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. He nodded, studying her face with an expression she could not read. "Welcome to Redemption Springs. The wagon's this way." She followed him to a sturdy buckboard, noting the rifle secured beneath the seat. He helped her up with surprising gentleness, then climbed beside her and took the reins. They rode in silence for 20 minutes, the town shrinking behind them. Emma's anxiety grew with each mile. What had she done? Married a stranger through letters and promises she had no way to verify. "You afraid?" Jake asked suddenly. The directness startled her. "Should I be?" He glanced at her, and for the first time something like warmth flickered in his eyes. "No. But I expect you are anyway." "I am," she admitted. "Honest." "That's good." He guided the horses around a rocky outcrop. "Listen, Emma, I know what this arrangement looks like. Man needs help on his ranch. Young woman needs security. But I want you to know something right now, before we reach my land."
Heart hammered.
"What?" "You can leave whenever you want. I will not keep you here against your will. If you decide this life is not for you, I will take you back to town myself. Put you on the first stage east with enough money to start over." Emma stared at him, searching for the deception, the trap. She found none. "Why would you do that?" Jake's jaw tightened. "Because my mother was forced into a life she hated. Watched it destroy her piece by piece. I swore I would never do that to another woman, no matter how desperate I got for help." The honesty in his voice cut through her fear. This was not what she had expected. Not at all. "And what do you want, Jake Morrison?" He met her gaze fully then, and she saw something that made her breath catch. Loneliness. Deep and aching. "A partner," he said quietly. "Someone who chooses to be here, not someone who stays because she has nowhere else to go." The ranch appeared over the next ridge like a mirage in the shimmering heat. A modest house stood beside a barn, corrals, and a windmill that turned lazily in the breeze. It was more than Emma had dared hope for, yet somehow less grand than the word ranch had conjured in her imagination. Jake helped her down from the wagon and carried her bag to the porch. "I will show you around, then let you rest. Journey from Kansas City is long." She followed him through the front door into a main room that served as kitchen and living space. Everything was clean but sparse. A table, 2 chairs, a stove, shelves lined with canned goods and basic supplies. Through another doorway she glimpsed a bedroom. "There are 2 rooms," Jake said, catching her glance. "You take the bedroom. I have been sleeping in the barn anyway, easier when I need to check the horses at night." Relief flooded through her. He was giving her space, privacy. Time to adjust. You do not have to sleep in the barn," she said carefully. "I know, but I want you comfortable." He set her bag on the bedroom floor. "There is water in the pump outside. Privy is behind the house. I will be working in the south pasture if you need anything." Then he was gone, leaving her alone in the quiet house. Emma sank onto the edge of the bed, her mind spinning. This was not the cold transaction she had prepared herself for. Jake Morrison was offering her something unexpected, something that felt dangerously like respect. She unpacked her few belongings, changed into a simpler dress, and explored the house more thoroughly. In the kitchen, she found flour, cornmeal, dried beans, and bacon. Enough to make dinner. She decided to earn her place, to show Jake she could contribute. By the time the sun began its descent, she had beans simmering on the stove and cornbread baking. The smell filled the small house, and she felt a flicker of satisfaction. This was something she knew how to do, something that gave her purpose. Jake returned as dusk painted the sky orange and purple. He paused in the doorway, surprise clear on his face. "You cooked." "I can do more than just cook," Emma said, more defensively than she intended. "I can mend, clean, help with animals. I am not useless." His expression softened. "Never thought you were. Just did not expect you to start working your first day here." They ate in companionable silence. Emma watched him from across the table, noting the way he moved with careful economy, the exhaustion etched around his eyes. He was a man carrying heavy burdens alone. "How long have you been running this place by yourself?" she asked. 3 years. Since my father died. Before that, he and I worked it together. No siblings? Had a brother. He went east, wanted nothing to do with ranching. Jake pushed his plate aside. "That was good food, Emma. Best meal I've had in longer than I care to admit." "Tell me about the ranch," she said. "What needs doing?" He studied her for a long moment. "You really want to know? I am here or I not. Might as well understand what I am part of." So he told her. About the herd of cattle, 60 head that needed constant watching, the pastures that needed rotating, the endless repairs to fences, buildings, equipment, the drought that had stretched through summer, making every drop of water precious, the neighboring rancher, Carl Hayes, who had been trying to buy him out for 2 years. "Why does he want your land?" Emma asked. "Water rights. I control access to Miller Creek. Without it, his cattle have to travel 3 miles to the next water source." Jake's jaw tightened. "He has made it clear he will do whatever it takes to get this property." A chill ran down Emma's spine. "How far is whatever it takes?" "Far enough that I keep that rifle loaded." The weight of his words settled between them. Emma had fled one danger only to step into another, yet somehow, sitting across from this quiet, honest man, she did not feel the urge to run. "I should clean up," she said, rising to gather the dishes. Jake stood as well. "Emma, wait!" She turned, and he took a step closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of silver in his dark hair, the scar above his left eyebrow. "I meant what I said earlier. About you being free to leave, but I hope you will stay. Not just because I need help, though I will not lie and say I do not, but because—" He paused, searching for words. "Because having you here today, having someone to talk to share a meal with, it reminded me what I have been missing, what this place has been missing." Emma's heart raced. This was more than she had bargained for. He was offering more than shelter and security. He was offering something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. "I will stay," she heard herself say. "At least for now. We can see how things work out." Relief washed over his features. "That is all I ask. A chance." That night, Emma lay in the unfamiliar bed, listening to the wind whisper across the prairie. Through the window she could see the barn where Jake had made his quarters. A lantern glowed briefly, then went dark. She had come west expecting a business arrangement, a loveless marriage of convenience, but Jake Morrison had looked at her like she mattered, like her choices had value. He had given her power in a situation where she expected to have none. It was the most dangerous thing he could have done, because now Emma realized she wanted to stay, not because she had nowhere else to go, but because for the first time in her 18 years, someone had offered her not just shelter, but the possibility of being truly seen, and that possibility was worth fighting for. Emma woke to the sound of gunfire. She bolted upright, heart slamming against her ribs. Dawn light filtered through the curtains as another shot cracked across the morning air. She grabbed her shawl and ran to the window. Jake stood in the yard, rifle raised, firing toward the eastern pasture. Even from this distance, Emma could see the tension in his shoulders, the controlled fury in his movements. She rushed outside, her bare feet hitting the porch boards. "Jake, what is happening?" "Stay in the house," he commanded without turning, but Emma had never been good at following orders when fear gripped her. She moved closer, shading her eyes against the rising sun. In the distance, she saw them. 3 riders pushing a section of Jake's cattle toward the property line. "They are stealing your herd. Hayes' men." Jake fired another warning shot. The riders hesitated but did not retreat. 3rd time this month. "They take a few head each time, testing how far they can push. We need to get the sheriff." Jake laughed bitterly. "Sheriff gets paid by Hayes. He will take a report and do nothing." Emma watched the riders finally turn back, leaving the cattle confused and scattered. Jake lowered his rifle, exhaustion replacing the adrenaline. "This cannot continue," she said. "No, it cannot." He met her eyes, and she saw the desperation there. "Hayes is bleeding me dry. Between the drought and these constant raids, I am losing ground every day. Another year like this and I will have nothing left to defend." Emma's mind raced. She had survived 18 years in an orphanage by learning to think strategically, to spot opportunities others missed. What does Hayes want most? My land. What does he want from having your land? Jake considered. Respect, maybe. He came from nothing, built his ranch through hard work and harder deals. Owning Miller Creek would make him the biggest rancher in 3 counties. Give him the power he craves. So he wants legitimacy, status. Emma paced the yard, pieces clicking together. Men like that care what others think. What if we made his raids public? Made it so everyone in town knew what he was doing? How? Nobody will stand against him, but they might talk. Gossip has its own power. Emma turned to him, excitement building. The church social is this Sunday. Everyone will be there. What if we went together, as husband and wife, and I happened to mention these troubles to the right people? Not accusing Hayes directly, just sharing our struggles. Jake frowned. You want to fight him with words? Words can wound deeper than bullets sometimes, especially for a man who cares about his reputation. He studied her with new appreciation. You are more cunning than I gave you credit for. I learned from watching people who had power over me. You learned to fight with the weapons you have. She met his gaze steadily. Will you try it my way, before more blood gets spilled? Jake nodded slowly. We will try it your way. The next 3 days passed in tense preparation. Emma worked alongside Jake, learning the rhythm of ranch life. She mended fences, helped move cattle, and discovered she had a natural way with the horses. Jake taught her to ride, his hands steady on her waist as he helped her mount, his patience endless as she learned to read the animals. In the evenings they talked. He told her about his childhood, his mother's gentle nature crushed by frontier hardship, his father's grim determination to make the ranch succeed. She shared stories of the orphanage, the loneliness, the hunger for something more than survival. A bond was forming between them, fragile but real. Emma caught herself watching Jake as he worked, admiring the strength in his movements, the quiet competence. Once she looked up to find him watching her too, and the heat in his gaze made her breath catch. Sunday arrived bright and clear. Emma dressed in her best outfit, a simple blue dress she had kept pristine for special occasions. Jake wore clean trousers and a pressed shirt, looking uncomfortable but handsome. They rode into town together, and Emma felt eyes tracking their progress. The new bride. The mysterious mail-order woman who had come to save Jake Morrison's failing ranch. The church social buzzed with conversation and the smell of home cooking. Women clustered in groups, assessing Emma with undisguised curiosity. Men stood near the refreshment table discussing cattle prices and weather. And there, holding court near the church steps, stood Carl Hayes. He was a big man, well-fed and prosperous, with cold eyes that calculated the value of everything they touched. When those eyes landed on Emma, she felt stripped bare, assessed and dismissed in an instant. "Morrison?" Hayes called out, his voice carrying. "Heard you found yourself a wife." "Pretty little thing. Hope she knows what she's getting into." Jake's hand tightened on Emma's elbow, but she stepped forward before he could respond. "Mr. Hayes," she said sweetly. "How kind of you to notice. Yes, I am Emma Morrison now. Jake has been showing me around the ranch. It is beautiful country, though I confess I was startled by some of the challenges." Hayes's eyes narrowed. "Challenges? Oh, the drought, of course. Everyone is struggling with that. But then there are the peculiar incidents. Cattle wandering off the property, shots fired in the early morning." She smiled innocently. "Jake says it is just part of ranch life, but I wonder if other spreads experience the same troubles." The women nearby had stopped talking, listening now. Hayes's face reddened slightly. "Cattle wander," he said tersely. "Open range is open range." "Of course. I'm sure you are right." Emma touched Jake's arm affectionately. "I'm just grateful my husband is such a good shot. He says it is important to protect what is yours." The message landed. Hayes held her gaze for a long moment, recognition dawning that this young woman was not the helpless bride he had assumed. She was a player now, and she had just made the first move. "Enjoy the social," Hayes said coldly, then turned away. Jake leaned close to Emma's ear. "That was brilliant and terrifying." That was just the opening, Emma whispered back. Now we see how he responds. Hayes responded 3 nights later with fire. Emma woke to Jake shaking her shoulder, his face grim in the lamplight. Barns burning? Get dressed and stay alert. She threw on her clothes and ran outside. Flames consumed the eastern corner of the barn, orange and hungry against the black sky. Jake was already there with buckets, fighting desperately to keep the fire from spreading to where the horses screamed in terror. Emma did not hesitate. She grabbed a bucket, filled it at the pump, and ran toward the inferno. The heat slapped her face, steel in her breath, but she threw the water and ran back for more. They worked in frantic rhythm, bucket after bucket, until finally the flames died to smoldering embers. Jake led the terrified horses to the corral, while Emma collapsed against the water pump, her hands blistered, her dress soaked and ruined. "Is this Hayes?" she gasped. Jake knelt beside her, examining her burned hands with gentle concern. "Who else?" "We embarrassed him in front of the town. He is showing us the cost of defiance." "We have to prove it was him." "How? His men would have been careful." "No witnesses, no evidence." Jake's voice was hollow with defeat. "Maybe I should just sell, take what he offers, and start over somewhere else." Emma grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. "No, this is your home. Your father's legacy. We do not surrender." "Emma, this is not your fight." "Yes, it is." The words came from somewhere deep inside her, a truth she had not fully recognized until now. "This became my fight the moment I chose to stay. The moment I started caring about this place. About you." The confession hung between them. Jake's eyes widened, and for a heartbeat, Emma thought he might kiss her. Instead, he pulled her into his arms, holding her tight against his chest. "I cannot lose you too," he whispered. "You will not. But we need to be smarter. Hayes thinks he can intimidate us with violence. We need to make that violence cost him more than it costs us." Over the next week, they fortified the ranch. Jake taught Emma to shoot, and she proved a surprisingly good marksman. They set up a system of bells and tripwires around the property perimeter. Emma began documenting every incident in a ledger, noting dates, times, and descriptions. But Hayes's pressure only increased. Fences were cut, water troughs were poisoned. One morning they found 3 of their best cattle shot dead in the south pasture. Jake's face turned to stone when he saw the slaughtered animals. "This ends now. I am riding to Hayes's ranch." That is exactly what he wants. You show up angry, do something rash, and suddenly you are the aggressor. Emma caught his arm. "Let me try something first." "What?" "Trust me. Give me 2 days." Emma rode into town alone, her heart hammering but her face calm. She went straight to the general store, where Martha Green held court as the town's biggest gossip. "Mrs. Green," Emma said warmly, "I need your advice." The older woman's eyes lit up. Nothing pleased Martha more than being consulted. Emma leaned in conspiratorially. "I am worried about Jake. These troubles at the ranch are wearing on him terribly. The barn fire, the dead cattle. He is talking about doing something drastic." "What kind of drastic?" Martha asked, leaning closer. "I should not say, but between you and me, he has been cleaning his guns an awful lot. Muttering about justice and taking matters into his own hands." Emma dabbed at her eyes. "I am frightened, Mrs. Green. I am frightened he will do something that gets him killed or arrested. Heavens. Has he gone to the sheriff?" "The sheriff says there is no proof of who is behind these incidents, but Jake is convinced he knows." Emma paused meaningfully. "He says everyone knows, but nobody will speak up." Martha's face flushed with indignation. "Well, I never. A man should be able to protect his property without resorting to vigilante justice. Of course, I keep telling him that. But when the law will not help, what is a man supposed to do?" Emma left the store knowing her words would spread through town like wildfire. By evening, the narrative would be set. Jake Morrison, driven to desperation by ongoing attacks, might take the law into his own hands. And everyone would know, without Emma saying it directly, who was driving him to that edge. The next day, Mayor Holland arrived at the ranch, looking uncomfortable. Behind him rode Sheriff Porter and 2 town council members. "Morrison," Holland said, "we need to talk about this situation with Hayes." Jake glanced at Emma, who gave him a small nod. "What situation would that be, Mayor? Do not play games. The whole town knows Hayes has been harassing you, trying to drive you off your land." Holland shifted in his saddle. "We cannot have range war breaking out. It is bad for business, bad for the town's reputation." "Funny how you care about it now," Jake said coldly. "We are here to help." The council has voted to assign a deputy specifically to patrol this area, and we are sending a telegram to the territorial governor about Hayes's water rights claims. Make sure everything is legal and proper. Emma stepped forward. That is very generous, Mayor. I know Jake will appreciate the support. Will not you, dear? Jake caught on. Yes, very generous. Though, I wonder what changed your minds. Sheriff Porter spoke up, looking ashamed. Your wife came to town yesterday. Word got around about how bad things have gotten out here. People started asking questions. Hayes's donations to the town fund do not look so good when folks realize what he's been doing to get what he wants. Public opinion is a powerful thing, Emma said softly. After the men left, Jake pulled Emma into his arms and kissed her. It was a kiss full of gratitude, admiration, and something deeper, something that had been building since the moment she stepped off that stagecoach. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Jake rested his forehead against hers. You are extraordinary, he said. I am practical, and I am tired of men like Hayes taking whatever they want. She smiled. Besides, I have developed a fondness for this ranch, and its owner? Just a fondness? Emma's smile widened. Perhaps more than a fondness. But even as they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, both knew this was not over. They had won a battle, not the war. And Carl Hayes was not a man who accepted defeat gracefully. Hayes came at dawn, but this time he came alone. Emma spotted him first, riding up the dusty road with his hands clearly visible on the reins, no weapon drawn. She woke Jake, and together they watched from the porch as the big rancher dismounted. I want to talk, Hayes called out. Just talk. Jake kept his rifle ready, but did not raise it. Talk, then. Hayes climbed the porch steps slowly, his usual arrogance tempered by something Emma could not quite identify. Caution, perhaps. Or calculation. You're smarter than I gave you credit for, Morrison. Both of you. Hayes nodded at Emma. That bit with the gossip mill was clever. Got the whole town watching me now, questioning my methods. Good, Jake said flatly. Maybe you will think twice before burning any more barns. I want to make you an offer. A real one this time, not a threat disguised as business. Hayes pulled a folded document from his pocket. I will buy grazing rights to your creek access. Not the land, just the water rights. You keep your ranch, I get what I need. Fair price, legal contract, everybody wins. Emma studied him carefully. Why the change of heart? Because I am not stupid. The governor's office is asking questions now. The town council is watching. And your husband there has made it clear he will die before giving up his land. Hayes met Jake's eyes. I respect that, even if I do not like it. A man who fights for what is his is a man worth dealing with, honestly. You tried to destroy us, Jake said, his voice hard. I tried to intimidate you into selling cheap. It is how I have built everything I have. But you two fought back in ways I did not expect. Made me look like a bully instead of a businessman. Hayes' jaw tightened. I am offering you a way forward that does not end with one of us dead. Jake looked at Emma. She saw the question in his eyes. This was her home now, too. Her choice mattered. What are the terms? She asked. They negotiated for 2 hours. Emma surprised both men with her sharp understanding of property rights and water law. She had spent her evenings reading Jake's father's old ledgers and legal documents, educating herself. In the end, they struck a deal. Hayes would pay for seasonal access to Miller Creek, with strict limits on how much water he could take. Jake retained full ownership of the land and permanent water rights. Hayes would compensate them for the damages to the barn and livestock. The agreement would be filed with the Territorial Land Office, making it official and binding. One more thing, Emma said as Hayes prepared to leave. You will announce this deal publicly. Let everyone know it was a legitimate business arrangement, not you backing down from a fight. Hayes laughed, a genuine sound. You protecting my reputation now? I am protecting ours. We do not need people thinking we won by making you look weak. We won by being reasonable business people. Emma held his gaze. Besides, you might find it useful to have allies instead of enemies. She is wasted on you, Morrison, Hayes said, shaking his head, but there was respect in his voice now. You better treat her right. I intend to. After Hayes rode away, Jake pulled Emma into his arms. I cannot believe you just negotiated peace with Carl Hayes. He is just a man. Powerful, ruthless, but still just a man. And men can be reasoned with when their pride is protected and they see a path to getting what they want. She looked up at him. We both get what we want now. The ranch is secure. We can actually build a life here. Is that what you want? Jake asked quietly. A life here? With me? Emma had been waiting for this question, preparing her answer. But now that the moment arrived, words seemed inadequate. When I got on that stagecoach in Kansas City, I thought I was running away, escaping to anything that was not the orphanage. I expected a business arrangement with a stranger, a roof over my head in exchange for cooking and cleaning. She took his hands in hers, feeling the calluses, the strength, but you offered me something I never expected. Choice, respect. A partnership. You saw me as a person, not just a means to an end. And somewhere between that first wagon ride and now, I stopped running away and started running toward something. Toward what? His voice was rough with emotion. Toward home, toward you, toward a life I actually want to fight for. Emma smiled through sudden tears. I love you, Jake Morrison. I know it is fast, I know it seems impossible, but I do. I love this ranch, this life we are building. I love you. Jake kissed her then, deep and passionate, a kiss that tasted like promise and future. When they finally broke apart, he was smiling wider than she had ever seen. I loved you from the moment you told Martha Green that story about me cleaning my guns. Watching you fight for us with nothing but your wits and courage, it made me realize what an extraordinary woman I had married. He cupped her face gently. I love you, Emma. And I swear I will spend every day earning the gift of your choice to stay. They married again that Sunday, this time in front of the whole town in a proper ceremony. Emma wore a simple white dress that Martha Green and the other town women had helped her make. Jake stood tall and proud, his eyes never leaving her face. The ranch thrived over the following months. With the hay situation resolved and the drought finally breaking, they expanded the herd and repaired the barn. Emma proved to have a talent for business, keeping meticulous records and finding buyers for their cattle at premium prices. But more than the ranch's success, their partnership flourished. They worked side by side during the day and fell asleep in each other's arms at night. Emma learned to rope and brand. Jake learned to appreciate the power of strategic thinking over brute force. A year after she arrived in Redemption Springs, Emma stood on the porch watching the sunset paint the prairie gold and crimson. Jake came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Any regrets? He asked. Emma leaned back against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. She thought about the frightened 18-year-old girl who had stepped off that stagecoach, desperate and alone. That girl was gone, replaced by a woman who knew her own worth, who had claimed her own destiny. Not a single one, she said. Not one. And it was true. She had come west as a mail-order bride, expecting shelter and survival. Instead, she had found love, partnership, and a home worth fighting for. She had discovered that the greatest adventure was not escaping from something, but choosing something worth building. In choosing Jake and in Jake choosing her back every single day, Emma Carter Morrison had finally found where she belonged.